had a Bastin tea patty.
Creamy crunchy cookie.
So. Welcome back, everybody, to another video. Oh my gosh, the ridiculous long wait. I'm sorry. I know I was getting all kinds of hate mail from you guys. You're very upset that we decided to take a hiatus. It was, in a lot of ways, a forced hiatus. A lot of family that came in during my parents' 40th wedding anniversary, a lot of planning and things going on around that. So it became a very interesting scheduling conflict. And unfortunately, I think we went over a month without a video. Did just throw up one recently, but it was it was a little bit of that, but wouldn't say it's regurgitated so much as it was just kind of waiting in the rears and finally had to come out. We do have one other video that was kind of held back in the data mine, in the hard drive there, so we'll have that one come out as well. But we figured, given the time period that we find ourselves in, given the interesting climate that things are as far as politically and...
well, not to mention today's date.
Yeah, today's date being July 4th, Independence Day.
Independence Day.
I'm happy to say Happy 4th of July to people,
Yes.
but I do like to reiterate Happy Independence Day because, let's just be honest, what we're actually talking about here, what we're celebrating
Not a movie.
is, not a movie, but it is our separation from England. It is our escape from the redcoats and fascism and being held back from our religious liberties and all that good stuff to eventually go through a few bumps and bruises, because all countries do. We definitely have a tattered past. But the growth that came from that, what we learned from that, what we've abolished because of that, to turn around and become still the greatest country, the greatest nation in the world. So
Democracy.
The pride just overflows at this point, because how could it not? I mean, the things that just the Constitution alone, the greatest living document in the history of government, is just amazing. So so many things to be proud of and happy about that we decided we're going to go ahead and start working into the movies that show good patriotism with some good historical facts and just good stories that are surrounded that. Because yes, the stories themselves might be fictional, but there is a lot of history surrounding these stories that they decide to interject in these movies. So,
but these are our wartime top 10. Wartime movies, patriotic type theme.
The times of wars have passed. Again, history that we learn from,
Well,
as we move forward from and become better.
You will learn from other videos that we really like war films. So why
not? A lot
not?
of good things to say right now, in spite of, really dogging on X-Men recently, which, it deserved it in a lot of ways. But if you're looking for something a little more positive and upbeat, we got something coming for you right now.
Yeah, we got some good old-fashioned war flicks.
Yeah. We got a little bit of patriotism going on in our scenes right now. A lot of things that we feel kind of embody what is America.
Smells a bit like apple pie in here, and hot dogs.
Smells a bit like nice coffee.
And tea.
Yeah, it smells like freedom, liberties. Although being trampled on at a ridiculous rate right now, we can at least still be appreciative for the ones that we still have.
And by the way, we both have our Bucko 5, just in case you're wondering if we had freedom.
Yep, it doesn't come free, so here it is. We paid our dues forward for that, so that we can have the options and the freedoms and liberties that allow us things that can just be happy and good and make us feel wonderful inside and make us feel protected and defended and justified.
Exactly. So, number 10 on our list, we actually watched when we were both pretty young. And then we watched again recently because we were like, I remember this movie, but I had this weird memory about this movie that was based on two different things that were very similar. There was a TV show, I can't remember the stinking, like, Crazy Stories or whatever. It was produced by Steven Spielberg. Yeah, and it was very similar.
So it had some quality.
It was still a very similar story, but it was goofy. And I remember thinking, this movie's goofy, but then I rewatched it.
Well, I saw Memphis Belle first, and then I saw the one that you talked about as the TV version.
I watched it around the same time.
Yeah, around the same time, and I was like, well, no wonder you thought these are the same movies. They're so stinking similar, but yet
one's short, one's not even a movie. One's like a half hour whatever thing, and the other one's a movie. Anyway, I can't believe I mixed up Patrick Mildew. What's his name? Patrick Muldew?
No, Matthew Modine.
Matthew Modine.
Yes.
Motif.
Very, very monotone in this film, unfortunately, but yet still enjoyable.
That's him. And
that is him in general, yes.
Yeah, and then I got that mixed up with Kevin Costner. I can't imagine why I would have that mixed up.
Exactly.
But my
favorite... Kevin Costner in the other one?
Yeah, in the other one. Anyway, so Memphis Belle. Now, it's a movie about one of those giant floating fortresses that they flew into Germany and bombed in one of these crazy raids that they had during World War II.
Yeah, bomber slash fighting fortress. I wish I actually had the classification for it right now. I'm
Right.
feeling a little unpatriotic, little unmilitary right now because I love that kind of stuff. I used to have every classification that was available for you,
Yeah.
you know, M4 and all that. So it's surprisingly I don't have this one, but I'm sure it started with B because it was a B class bomber, and it was a fortress because it was loaded with Ma Deuces or 50 BMGs, front, back, left, and right. Plus, they even had rotating turret guns underneath and on top. So, I mean, it was definitely a pretty BA plane.
Fortified.
Yes, fortified for all ridiculous intents and purposes because these guys had to go on long bombing missions over enemy territory, and the majority of them got shot down.
Yeah.
Flat cannons were their enemy in a lot of ways. They still had fighters they had to go up against, but that generally wasn't their biggest enemy. It was range, mileage, lack of fuel, and it was getting just destroyed by flak fire. I mean, they powder the skies with that on a regular basis, and it's amazing these things got through.
How would you like to be that guy in the bottom?
My goodness.
I'm not the biggest guy in the world. I always worried about that.
I would not want to be Samwise Gamgee in the bottom of one of those things. That's
and
I
totally saw one of these flying fortresses at an air base in my hometown, and I saw that, and I'm like, that is really freaking small. But I thought, well, that's where I'd end up being. I think I might have had a couple of nightmares or whatever when I was younger about being.
If I were to join and I would get one of these planes, that's right where they'd put me.
Yeah,
dang it.
Right down there. But it was really cool to get,
the tail gunner was also a dangerous position and required to be a smaller person to sit back there. But you weren't laying inside of a little rotating gun turret ball. So
anyway, very cool movie. Honorable mention for Billy Zane's mustache in this flick.
Yep.
Just
very
a Clark Gable
pencil stash.
Yeah, very Clark Gable. Very cool character. And I like movies like this because they always show the camaraderie of the characters of the group before they go out and do stuff, and it had a pretty happy ending too. So that was really nice.
Honorable mention for Eric Stoltz and his great poetry reading. Of course, he was the only guy to actually get injured during that whole movie. So what I thought was funny about, I wouldn't necessarily call this Mandela effect, but I remember watching it as a kid thinking there was multiple guys in the plane that actually died.
Yeah, right.
But apparently, no. It was all their comrades flying around them.
Yeah.
Bodies flying through the air, guts spreading across the windshield as other planes being blown up. Some pretty gruesome scenes.
Guy, right?
Yeah, accidentally shooting his own guy. Some interesting stuff, but I thought it was funny how I remembered more death in that movie, but the actual main core people in that plane all survived.
Yeah,
all of them. Even Stoltz at the end. He was unconscious for the last half of the movie, but it was kind of surprising to see that. I was like, wait a second, I remember this differently. But just a lot of fantastic stuff. And I think historically, I don't know if there was actually a Memphis Belle.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you.
I do know that the mission they went on was historical, but of course the story surrounding it wasn't. So
the war is historical.
Yeah, exactly. It was loosely based in fact, so we can still appreciate it for that.
And then moving to number 9 here is an old flick. And I love this movie. It took me years to get around to watching it because for some reason, like most young people, we just don't want to go backwards with movies. But I did a lot of silent films and old movies, classics and stuff when I was young. So I kind of was always into that. Plus my parents were really into movies. His parents were really into movies too. So we just kind of went backwards.
Thank goodness for them. If it wasn't for my dad, I would not have been privy to a lot of Arnold Schwarzenegger movies at a very young age for rated R stuff. Granted, there was a lot of there was a lot of parental censoring going on, jumping in front of the screen, fast forwarding in certain scenes and all of that. But as a young child, I got to preview a lot of Arnie movies, and I definitely appreciate my parents for that.
Yeah, me too, for sure. But there is no Arnold Schwarzenegger in this list.
No, which is unfortunate to some extent, but
he's an American tale, really. But
he is an American tale. He's definitely very Joe America for being Austrian.
Yes, very Joe America.
Can still appreciate him. If they had ever changed the laws, he is back in the day when he was still a Republican. He is one guy I would have voted for to be president.
Back in the day, changing up.
Definitely slipping up a little bit these days. Definitely not the same Arnold Schwarzenegger he used to be. But hey, if you want to remain popular, you got to change your politics, right?
So number 9 is Great Escape with Steve McQueen and his. I just love throwing a ball against the wall.
Oh, there's Gene Attenborough in there. There was a couple of different worthwhile notable stars for the day.
Charles Bronson was in it. James Colburn was in it. What was the guy's name? I can't even think of. Maverick.
Was there? Yeah. Brolin wasn't in that, was he?
Was it Brolin? Or was it not? It might have been. No, it wasn't Brolin. It was. Anyway, Colburn, I believe. And they had the number 1 from James Bond was in it. You actually went blind in the movie.
Oh yeah.
With James Garner. Anyway, it's a whole movie about guys in a prison camp during World War II. You
Yeah.
know, Canadians,
You
Americans.
got nothing better to do, you might as well be insurgents while being in captivity. You might as
Right.
well do everything you can to try and pull more resources away from the front lines to sit there and
I'm
have to
pretty
keep
sure-
you occupied in your prison. So they did a pretty fantastic job of that, while also realizing that imminently they were going to probably die. So it'd be better off to try and die escaping than it would be just to sit there docile and wait for
And
it
it's
to happen.
it's a long movie, but it's the process of them creating this tunnel and then actually making the plans and following through with the plans is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is what Hogan's Heroes was later on based off of.
Oh yeah.
And it's funny, don't get me wrong, but learning about him as a person, thank you movies,
Mm-hmm.
is not cool. But anyway, I like Steve McQueen. He's totally Mr. Cool. He did his own stunts riding around the motorcycle at the end of the movie.
Great scene with him hopping over those the
Fence.
barbed wire line fence. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a really excellent flick.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird to see.
It shows American tenacity in a situation where you
Mm-hmm.
could kind of feel like you could sit down, be depressed, and
Right.
just kind of give up.
But no.
They occupied
Fighting
their
through
minds with fighting through it, and also just being a thorn in the sides of the Germans that were occupying them or that were enslaving
And the
them.
tunnel
So-
is tiny, and they're building these little things to make it go through. And Bronson is the one that's like doing the tunnel ratting, and eventually, one too many cave-ins on him, he starts freaking out a little bit.
Yeah,
And
I'd have a hard time going in there in the first place, let alone
Right.
going back in after a few cave-ins.
yeah, and then eventually he gets over that, and he goes. And, I think only maybe a handful of the guys actually were able to escape to like Spain.
Yep.
Maybe. Most of them either they were killed or sent back, and
Well, even the ones that did escape, I think there were a good portion of them that actually got captured while being found out by SS and Gestapo. So.
right. Steve McQueen's character got recaught, and he got put back in the brig, and
Yeah.
went back to his throwing his baseball
Mhm.
against the wall. Like I love baseball.
Whatever. I'm just either plan the next escape or wait for me my freedom.
Yeah, it was pretty Mr. Cool in that. So
Mhm.
moving on to number 8.
Yes, good old another classification of a submarine, an old German World War II
U-boat.
area U-boat, U-571. An interesting mention for what I thought was an odd casting choice of Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
You can
Really
say
good
that
work,
his
though.
southern accent is as American as they come.
Yeah.
Some days I feel like it's kind of a little overblown, but
Yeah.
it's definitely interesting to see that he actually pulled off this role pretty well. I thought it was a
One of
little
my
bit slow
favorites
starting,
for him.
and then it really finished off nicely. And I thought that he did a great job with it. And I would almost like to see him in more wartime flicks. I think that we could use more of those. I mean, I don't really
That or
think there's a
baseball
problem with
movies,
it. Yeah, baseball movies for
Yeah.
sure.
But definitely, having Bill Paxton in it was a nice thing.
Mhm.
I think for people like us, we're like Bill Paxton fans, like under the floor, like, there's not a whole lot of Bill Paxton
May
fans,
he
but
rest in
we,
peace,
we
yes.
love Bill Paxton.
Mhm.
And then Bon Jovi randomly showing up in this
Of
flick.
all things,
Of all
yeah.
things.
I think it initially too with being like I'm kind of half and half on McConaughey. Now suddenly we have Bon Jovi in
Yeah.
here. You guys are starting to lose me. I don't understand where this is going. Bulkhead dead
Boom.
out of the movie in the beginning. Oh, okay, never mind. No
But
more Bon Jovi to worry
the
about.
cast, Harvey Keitel. There's so many really cool little surprises character-wise, and it's all inside this little,
All takes place inside of a
claustrophobic.
teeny little U-boat.
Yeah.
I mean, it was ridiculous to
lots
the
of
point
drama.
of overexertion with the depth charges.
Yeah.
I mean, yes,
And then
splashes,
going super
yes.
low, super low. I saw that in the theater at the Mall of America, and I just
Yeah.
remember feeling like I was shell-shocked by the end of it.
Mhm.
But it was really cool.
It was definitely a little crazy. I mean, yes, it was ridiculous to the point where it's like, okay, these guys have blown up at least 5 times by now, but it definitely kept the drama
Having the
going. It kept-
torpedo go over the top of it.
Yeah,
like,
scrape across the
you're
side
like,
and
"Ah!"
everything. Yeah, I mean, they definitely
Yeah.
brought the tension up an extra few notches in that. So I
Yeah.
think in some ways movies have overdone that now, but I think it was still pretty tasteful the way they did it, even though it's still your suspension of disbelief in a lot of these movies has to go a little bit further sometimes.
Yeah, and when they're not super CGI'd all the time too, it's kind of, it gives you a feeling like, oh, it's real, even if they use like real models and stuff.
Hmm.
But yeah, I
Oh,
thought
I wish they could go back to more practical effects. That's
Yeah.
just so many things that even good wartime movies are missing.
even
right
having
now.
Smalls from Sandlot in that movie,
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
was, I didn't realize that was him for the longest time. I don't know why.
I know, right?
But,
It's like he
uh,
looked exactly like him, but I think
yeah.
in a lot of ways you're kind of going, nah, he looks way too much like him. I mean, that movie Sandlot was 10, 15 years ago. He couldn't
He's
look
still
that.
acting?
Oh wait, he looks the freaking same.
Yeah.
Holy cow!
He's like Christian Bale in Newsies. He looks exactly the same.
Just doesn't age.
yeah,
It's kind of creepy.
Weird stuff. Anyway, that was a great flick. We saw it pretty recently again.
We've had to rewatch a couple of these just because the more we sit and talk
Well,
about this, try
also
and make these
wanting to
lists,
see 'em.
it's also like, well, yeah, I mean, that just even talking about, like, I want to see that movie again.
Yeah, maybe later.
All right, to sit down and watch another one after we get done with this video.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. So moving on to number 7, we have my personal favorite in so many ways, just because it's so rewatchable.
It's Josh Hartnett is really why.
It's really
favorite.
why. Yeah, Josh Hartnett was the whole
Hartnett,
reason.
yeah.
Orlando Bloom right in the beginning. Yeah, just totally the whole reason why I sit down and watch.
Well, him falling out of a Black Hawk was pretty nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
The whole reason why I sit down and watch Black Hawk Down over and over again. It pops on TV for some reason. I just get stuck. It doesn't matter what point in the movie I get stuck in. Just got to sit there and watch it again.
Yeah.
I think it was also a good portrayal of the tenacity of soldiers in a situation when they're trying to go out and get one of their own.
Yeah.
It starts off
No
as
man
an easy
left
enough.
behind.
Yeah. Starts off as an easy enough mission. Go in, get these guys, bring them out. Well, a lot of botching, a lot of problems with intel, a lot of problems with a helicopter flying overhead trying to give these guys directions on where to go, and they set off the tone right from the beginning of the movie that these guys are kind of pricks and they don't really care about them and they're just kind of enjoying their nice sky view and not having to worry about RPGs and all of that. It's kind of nice for them up in the birds, but when you're actually down there on the ground seeing what it's actually like, things can get hairy fast. So one of the situations where it kind of went from a short, easy mission to, holy crap, now we got to go back in there and get our guys out, and we lost a lot in the meantime, and there's another prisoner of war now. So
yeah, and there's a lot of English type folks in this film playing American. Joe America's a lot of
America,
and I really appreciated pretty much everybody. Tom Hardy's in this film.
He shows up in so many random war flicks and these little roles where it's just kind of like...
I could understand him. I could understand the words that are coming out of his mouth. It was great.
Sometimes he pulls off an okay American accent, and other times he tries to go New York accent, and you wonder what the heck he's trying to do all the time.
Well,
and then, of course, he does Joe America, Deep South Hillbilly, and suddenly I just don't understand what the heck he's saying. It's like, I'm sorry, we're not all brain idiots over here when it comes to living in a certain demographic. Sorry, but you're not nailing that accent.
A lot of British, though. You had
just
Eric
goes to
Bana,
show when you're in a limited role, a supporting character, you're great, you shine, you do well, you do what you're supposed to. Mm-hmm. As the star of the film, sorry guys, not really getting behind that much anymore. He's a little bit overdone.
Ooh.
Yeah. But still nice to see because, again, so many random actors showing up in this that it's just kind of like, wait, what the heck? Wait, that younger guy? Ewan McGregor's just great. I mean,
making coffee.
Yeah, making coffee. Great typist. Ends up being one of the biggest badasses in the movie.
Yeah, he almost dies like 5 times.
Almost gets taken out by an RPG twice.
Yeah, pretty great.
Narrowly avoids it.
Got shot in the foot, didn't he, or something?
Yeah, I think he ended up getting injured by the end. He ended up walking himself out, but just funny to see. Again, another foreign guy. I mean, he's technically Scottish, but interesting to see these people with all these pretty heavy accents doing a pretty good job covering them up.
Joe America here.
Yeah, Eric Bana, super thick Australian accent, but yet suddenly going out there being Joe America again.
Yeah, he's pretty awesome too. Tom Sizemore once again. He'll come up later in this as well, but got a little
underrated in a lot of ways.
Yeah, if it wasn't for his drug habits, he'd be pretty great.
Mm-hmm. Him and Michael Madsen, which I guess they're brothers. I didn't realize that.
Are they? They just look like brothers. I always thought.
I know they look like brothers, but I guess they actually are related. So I thought that was kind of funny. I guess they just Hollywood names.
Hollywood
names.
Something
different as far as that goes.
Yeah.
But two guys that I thought had great moments here and there. But yeah, just can't stay away from the booze and drugs.
And now we're gonna get into a number 6 movie, which isn't really accurate, I suppose, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's historically accurate.
But for some reason, man, I mean, for me, it's all about the ghost scene. It's all about the ghost. And we're talking about The Patriot.
Yep.
With Mel Gibson.
Yeah.
And
Mr. Ozzy
Benjamin
Badass
Lawton
himself lost the accent a long time ago and don't know where it went.
Probably just gone forever. Mm-hmm. But anyway, that scene after his son was shot and killed, and then he just goes murdering on people, and his 2 sons are like, aim small, miss small.
It's exactly what I would hope that would be like as a father.
Oh,
Not only have my kids trained that well already in the first place, but having a situation where my righteous anger could be unleashed on somebody and go and clear out an entire platoon by myself practically with a hatchet and my 2 boys up on the ridge sniping for me.
Such a good scene.
Such a good scene. You can even overlook the fact that Heath Ledger is in it.
Ouch. But they're very similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. It's like they have these moments of good acting, and then suddenly they go back to being a teenage heartthrob, and then somewhere in between, but then ultimately fading off into obscurity.
Trajectory for their
Luckily, we still have heart in it. Sorry to say, Ledger's no longer around for us anymore, but
anyway,
definitely a good movie. I would say The Patriot is more patriotic than accurate, for sure. It's definitely a lot of great moments, running across the battlefield with the American flag and, taking out...
your horse.
Well, I always keep on calling him Oscar Isaacs, but it's not Oscar Isaacs.
It's something other.
Jason Isaacs.
Jason Isaacs.
And plays a phenomenal bad guy. Just
totally
evil.
Son of a gun I've ever seen in my life. But I love that.
Really enjoy his acting and what he brings to
that.
Then
one little great scene where they're just watching the battle unfold in somebody's backyard as they, saw some dude leave his house, and all of a sudden you see from the guy's perspective on the line, the cannonball coming at you, and then you see the guy's head bring it off. I was like, oh, I mean, in the theater, I
Couple
watched
lofty,
that.
hard bounces,
went,
and then right
"Oh!"
into his face.
Yeah, it was pretty terrific.
Great scene. And again, just a sheer appreciation for hatchets.
Man.
I throw hatchets at,
Smash,
in a lot of ways.
smash.
I like chopping wood and seeing it used in a good warrior-esque mindset and mentality, and throwing a nice homage back to the Indian that gave it to him. I thought that was pretty good, Native American.
Seem to think still, from this movie especially, he would have been a much better choice for Wolverine.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
I mean,
he's Australian too.
Even to
people.
this day, an Old Man Logan played by Mel Gibson would just be phenomenal. Please,
amazing. Or even Kurt
Russell. That is
holy. Anyway,
Kurt Russell, I can get behind pretty well.
We gotta
Harvey
keep going.
Keitel at one point would have been great.
Yeah, we got to just keep going. Unfortunately,
keep on moving on.
We got so many of these movies
many
to
good
talk
things. Hacksaw Ridge being
Number
in our
5.
number 5 spot.
And we saw this pretty recently.
Yeah.
I mean, like
Andrew Garfield is a good actor in a lot of ways. I thought he did great as Spider-Man, but to put him in a role like this, at first you're kind of going, hold on a second. He's a bit of a scrawny dude. He doesn't really play a tough guy role.
He's not a tough guy necessarily. He is, but he isn't.
Yeah, and it's his fortitude. It's his tenacity. It's his.
Spends half the movie trying to get into a war, so he doesn't get to use a gun.
Yeah, it's amazing too to see the adversity somebody faces when it's like, why are you guys hung up on this so ridiculously? Yes, I get it that you think it's unpatriotic. Yes, you think he's some kind of conscientious objector, but no, he wants to be utilized in the best way possible.
He wants to save
He wants to be able
lives.
to put his talents into place and to save lives. So naturally, why wouldn't you go into a situation like that? And I thought it was kind of funny what he had to face down to do that, and I think that he did it for the right reasons. Unfortunately, you have other movies like Full Metal Jacket and other Vietnam era movies that try to throw something at you that tries to say that, oh, I'm a conscientious objector because this war is bad and I don't like it and I'm here to try and make a difference.
He didn't get all political.
You're not doing anything, but he didn't get political about it. No, he was simply, he just thought that it was wrong to kill people and he's there to save people. So if I'm here to try and help, why are you trying to stop me?
He even saved the enemy. I mean, this guy's amazing. And he kicked a grenade with his foot.
Honorable mention for Vince Vaughn in this movie because
Vince Vaughn did a pretty good job being he was a drill sergeant basically.
And,
and he was stuck on top of that ridge when he pulled him down with all the other people. Oh man!
Well, and being one of the biggest thorns in his side while trying to get him to quit the entire time, ultimately come back around to being his friend.
A lot of people were like that in that movie. They were rallying behind him.
I didn't get you, but now I'm seeing you in action, and holy cow, you've got the biggest brass balls I've ever seen.
One of the best parts though is when he's like, oh, what are we waiting on for the next wave to go to attack? We're waiting on the private Doss to finish praying.
Yeah.
It's like, what? Like, that's so cool. He finally, he's
Hold on
really
a second. We like having this guy around us. Obviously, God's over this. We need him to pray for us first. So continue.
So, also, I believe this is directed by Mel Gibson.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's pretty
Honorable
cool.
mention there because I think a lot of people don't really know that he does a lot of behind-the-scenes work as well, especially directing.
He didn't have to be in this movie.
Yeah.
And he's in a few of these. So we can move forward now to, oh, my Lord, 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 Lord.
Matthew Broderick, Denzel Washington, Morgan Freeman.
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
We're talking about glory.
Yes.
We're talking about glory. We're talking about Civil War. We're talking about the Black Platoon, who was, just really a great group. They actually showed 2 different platoons. One that was not so great, and then this great group of guys.
Which ended up hating each other from the get-go.
Initially. Obviously, they're very divided.
A lot of racial tension back then, obviously. One of the worst, actually the worst time in our history for racial tensions, unfortunately. It's nice to see how a movie that doesn't really go full-blown historical actually has a good historical moment in there to kind of show how bad it was back then, to see the leaps and bounds that we've made up until this point to now in day and age, where it's one of the greatest countries to live in if you're a minority.
Even in this movie, though, you see the beginning of like a character like Denzel. He's the conflicted character, going from just wanting to not be there to running away, then having sympathy because he's got like messed up feet. He's been beat numerous times by his massa, I'm sure, at some point in his life. And then, just being as tough as nails, and then eventually, taking up the flag of his country when his captain falls.
Well, once they start to go through some crap together, I think the camaraderie starts to come into play, and then once they realize that they're all there for the same goal, and they're each other's brothers, and we're helping to defend not only our country, but each other in the
and
situation.
your freedom that you're just getting at this point, which I still love this movie. I saw it back in junior high, and I haven't watched it in a while, but I'm thinking about watching it right now.
Matthew Broderick, a little understated in the beginning. He did start off as a coward.
Kind of a bit of a weasel to start off with, but he works his way into being a tough, little guy, with a fun mustache.
Yeah, and ultimately you have Morgan Freeman in there. He didn't even really narrate in this one, but he was.
But it basically was.
Yeah, it basically was, but he was just there to be amazing as he always is, because more Morgan Freeman the better.
A lot of different characters from different backgrounds still, even in the situation where you got a bunch of African Americans. Even each one of them have different backgrounds. There was one that was like, what do you call him? He was basically like he worked for a rich white family in the north and stuff. And he had glasses, and he was very, well spoken, like unlike some of the other guys. There was one that was really slow, but really, really, really sweet as a human being. Just a really great character.
Show you the diverse background, yeah. Not a whole lot of stereotypes.
One problem I kind of had with the movie was the ending. Where it's all of a sudden they're just standing there and there's like a cannon coming at. It's like, did they all just die then? Like, I don't know.
They all just get slaughtered and wiped out. I guess I got to go to history for that one because it is still loosely based on that story. But
it broke my heart watching that movie. My goodness.
But ultimately a great patriotic film for sure, because I think it just shows a lot of what went into making this the greatest country in the world.
In another stage, another war, obviously. And
back when things were really bad compared to how great they are now.
Now we have our top 3.
Yes. Getting into some good stuff here, because I particularly like this one. I think that it has some interesting aspects to it where it's, again, not fully historical. I think this is a completely made-up story, but they still had historical elements in it, and an interesting hodgepodge of actors. I think it's, in a lot of ways, some of them thought they were a better actor than you, Rick. And other ways where it's just kind of they wanted you to just do it!
Yeah, just do it!
But ultimately, I think when it was helmed by a really great actor who just loves peanut butter. I think when we reference Fury, I think not only for my love of military artillery and tanks, I think it's interesting to show how, again, a war brings together multicultural backgrounds of a lot of different people that you wouldn't put together in a social, set of circumstances, but in a wartime set of circumstances, just see how all the bullcrap drops away and suddenly you're all there for a singular goal and you become each other's brothers.
Even if there is some bullcrap still splashed in, you're still each other's brothers. You still have each other's back. You're still fighting the same cause. And I imagine, you get really close hanging out in a tank for how many. And they're not
tight quarters. Yeah, I think in some ways you kind of felt like you're protected there, but I think you also kind of feel trapped and claustrophobic in a sense.
We had more
it's
tanks.
Kind of an interesting back and forth for the psyche of somebody having to be in that situation.
We had more tanks than Germany did, but they had much better engineering in their tanks.
Yes, they had much more powerful, more faster tanks for sure.
But they could maneuver as well.
Yes. The goal of Sherman definitely was, I think it was just the mass production of it, being able to just get them out there and keep on filing them in, eventually getting an upgrade, which I think was kind of interesting. There's very few Sherman tanks that actually got that size of a cannon or a gun on it, and that particular one happened to have it, so I think it just kind of added another
It was also
kind of
towards the end of
badass
that film
aspect
as
to it.
well, and they were pushing towards Germany.
Yeah, towards the end of the war, yeah.
Yeah.
But ultimately a great last stand type of movie for sure.
Yeah, that's another best part of that film is the last part of that movie. But
having a chance to run, but ultimately deciding, no, our lives mean so much more to the hundreds of thousands of people that are going to die or be put in a horrible situation if this SS group actually gets through and actually helps resupply other people. They need to cut them off right there. So ultimately sacrificing themselves for the greater good of the entire military at that point, and a great sacrifice in a way that we just ended up in an awesome culminating badass last scene of we're just going to take out as many as we can and look at what we did.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Ultimately the Pansy still made it. Not a fan of that actor, but I think in a sense they did some justice with him where they kind of was like, okay, well, you still got a good heart, you still got some sensitivity to you. Yeah, you got laid in the movie. So I think in a lot of ways it kind of helped him to open his eyes to the reality of the war and why they needed to be there. But I think in another turn of events, it was also the right person to survive to be able to tell that story and still make sure that their stories were told.
Quick story about this movie. I was gonna watch it kind of, but I don't like spending money like $10 in a theater sometimes. If I could see it like
these
later.
These days you're like 15 to 20.
Whatever,
bucks.
you know what I mean. But a friend of mine told me that she was at the movies and had to go to the bathroom in the middle of it, and there was some girl sitting there in like a fetal position, crying, and she's all like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "Fury." And I'm like, "Oh, I guess I'm gonna watch this movie now."
Yeah.
It's
not necessarily because it made you sad, but because it invoked that kind of emotion.
I mean, she was upset. I was like, well, this better be a very violent movie or a very interesting movie.
It was.
Or something.
Understated in a lot of ways, had a great tone all the way through it, but just brilliant.
Absolutely. And moving to number...
special mention for that one, Shia LaBeouf.
Oh, Shia LaBeouf's mustache.
Yeah, his mustache. But it was amazing how he put aside his crap and his ignorance and his, self-absorbed narcissisticness and just being a really weird, off-the-wall guy. Played a Christian and played it well, did it justice, didn't make fun of it, was actually a likable character in that, and I think it's his best acting he's ever done.
Here am I, send me.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And to sit there and stand next to Brad Pitt, I guess not one of the greatest actors in the world, but still a solid actor. I think he kind of helped bring up the acting abilities of the other people around him by helming that. So just got to put an honorable mention there for it. Where'd you go, Shia LaBeouf? Go back to being that kind of an actor. We'd like to see that again. I don't know who you are anymore.
I don't know. He likes peanut butter and Falcons,
I guess. Yeah. So we can move on to our number 2 spot, which is again another Mel Gibson-y goodness. I don't care what you guys think about him. I think he's a great guy, and I think he's got a lot of good qualities, even though he's just had a few downfall moments in his personal life that I think he's more than gotten around now.
And this is the only Vietnam flick on here, I believe.
Yep. Because I think it did a good job of portraying that it was still a messed up war. We didn't go in full guns a-blazing like we were supposed to. We just kind of pussyfooted around until eventually we got slaughtered by these guys that we thought were going to be a big problem, and they showed us what guerrilla warfare was really like.
We also thought we could just come in there and take over, and we were dealing with new weaponry. Everything was kind of new, and the territory,
new Huey helicopters,
and it wasn't like the same kind of war we fought before in the past. So but this shows us our first entrance into the Vietnam War and us winning. And we were soldiers.
Yes.
And
one of the only times I think that we had a good win as far as the Vietnam War is concerned.
Or at least one you could tell. Yeah. And I must say, Sam Elliott looking like the Grinch the entire time really cracked me up. I love his character. Very much a grumpy old man.
Always odd to see him without his mustache.
Yeah, I don't see it too often. I mean, I've seen like a small mustache would look funny, but this, literally, he looks like the Grinch. Yeah. Sorry, a white Grinch.
It was also interesting, too, to kind of bounce back and forth from the aspect of, here's a ridiculousness we're seeing on the ground in the thick of it, and then clipping back to their wives and what they're going through and what they're having to deal with on a daily basis, and then just kind of waiting for... Some women went a little bit too stereotypical black female in it, but I think it did do a good job of portraying what it was like to be living your life normally, having to let your husband go off to a situation like that, and then realizing that he never comes back from it. So definitely a tear-jerking, heart-wrenching moments in a lot of ways, but I think it did show a good side of the effects of war and what kind of toll it takes on everybody and family and what the women have to put up with in a situation like that, being a military wife.
Females, strong males doing their duty.
Because there's just no strong female characters in movies.
Doesn't happen
anymore at all, even though the 15 that I can list you at the top of my head. But moving on.
That's a different list.
That's a different list altogether. Probably one of my favorite Vietnam-era flicks because I think it did do a good job of portraying both sides of it. It's like, you understand there was the draft, there was horrible things about it, we didn't take care, we're still not taking care of our soldiers, unfortunately, when they come back. It's just atrocious how much they're overlooked in a lot of ways and how their lives are not taken care of because they've been taking care of us. But I think it was just a good portrayal of a very controversial war, and I think it did portray it in a good light without getting too far blown into the liberalist mentality of war bad, never should happen, go away, all peace, love, and happiness.
Lots of good actors in that movie as well, Same actor that played the main journalist in this movie is our sniper and #1 best patriotic wartime movie.
Which is a great segue to go ahead and move us into our #1. I think this has been on a couple of our other lists before because it's just a great movie all around, but when it comes to patriotic, slightly historically accurate, and just a good made-up story anyways, Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah, and Captain Miller, for Tom Hanks made me forget that he was so funny in the 80s.
I know, right? Still wishing he would go back to comedy now, but,
But the best part of that movie is the beginning. That D-Day scene is just out of this world.
Landing on the beaches in Normandy, yes, it was definitely intense. I think I remember as a kid seeing it. I was 11. No.
I was in high school.
I was in high school, so I probably was around 14, 15 when I think I first saw that, and it was definitely just like we got this, crazy, intense look on everybody's faces, a few guys, puking, which you think would be from seasickness, but it's probably just from nerves knowing what you're about to land into, and then hitting the beach, and then all of a sudden that door dropping down, and then it's just instant chaos. Like, just from that point, just like, holy crap, I am overloaded by heads being blown off, limbs going everywhere, people being blown, guys jumping over the side to try and save themselves, but ultimately being drowned by the heaviness of all their equipment. It's just like, okay, it slows down for a second to get into the story.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah, you finally get, they finally, tackle the beach, they finally get through all that stuff, and then you have some guys shooting Germans where they thought they were German. This is a really cool story that we found out later.
Yeah, some historical scenes that kind of made their way into there. You didn't realize at first, and it's just sitting there, throwing their hands up, surrendering, and they're like, what? I can't hear you? And then he shoots them all, and he's like, what do you think he said? Look, I washed for supper!
Oh,
Come to
Americans.
find out, they're actually Austrians. They're saying, no, we didn't kill any Americans. We're forced to be here. Don't
Yeah.
shoot us.
Yeah.
End up being killed. It's just like,
But they didn't
oh,
put
language
subtitles.
barrier.
Yeah,
Dang it.
They put subtitles, and I think that's pretty cool of Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
And
Paying attention to the weirdness on
this
both
is-
sides. It's like, yeah, on both sides of war, there's always atrocities committed. You just can't get away from
this
that
is
situation,
without a doubt my
unfortunately.
favorite Matt Damon film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Unfortunately, I think in a lot of ways he's not done himself a lot of justice in a lot of the movies he's done lately because he's just decided to go more to the political side instead of the acting Hollywood, stay in your lane type of situation. But it was interesting to see that he was suddenly not Boston for a second. Well, at least maybe a little bit, but showing some more humanity that we've seen out of him before. And
Ted
kind of,
Danson, though. I
yeah,
want to talk about
mean,
Ted Danson.
Ted Danson.
Why is he in
Oh,
this
yeah.
movie? I mean, he's pretty great, I guess. I don't know.
Vin Diesel.
Vin Diesel's
I
best
mean,
work next to I
ever.
Am Groot.
Yes, next to Iron Giant.
Yeah. Vin Diesel, give this to my... I don't know.
Yeah. Send this letter to my parents.
Yeah.
There's some blood on it. But
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah,
like,
you know
oh,
what this-
wow, you actually gave me a bit of a tear-jerking moment there. Congratulations. Where'd your
I
acting
can't
go?
help it. It reminds me of my sister.
Yeah. And ultimately got you killed.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
But that's just, it was really gritty. It was
Interesting to have Matt
It also
Damon
sprung
and then a
board.
discount Ben Affleck, and
Yeah.
then you didn't even realize that.
Ed Burns. It definitely sprungboard us into something even greater with Band of Brothers, which I can't put on this list because it's not a movie. It's
Nope.
a series.
It's a
and I love
fantastic
it.
series. Wish they could make a whole movie out of it, but
Yeah.
that's just too much
And
to
it's
cram
more
into a couple
accurate,
hours. But yeah.
But anyway, the stabbing
Tom
scene,
Hardy in that one too. Yeah.
the stabbing scene in that movie gave me
Ooh.
nightmares for a month.
Yeah.
It was really hard to. I felt it.
Yeah.
I literally felt it as I was watching it.
I mean, I knew about Fubar before, but I mean, it's ingrained in there now.
Yeah, and
I can't
earn this.
Yeah.
Earn
To this day, it still surprised me. The first two times I watched that, I thought he was saying
Ernest.
Ernest. I thought he was introducing himself because, as far as I could tell, we didn't get his first name
Captain
out of the whole.
Ryan.
Yeah, Captain Miller out of the whole
Or
thing did not have a first name.
Miller.
So I thought he was finally introducing himself. But no. Apparently, you're about to die. You're kind of in a bit of a queasy state,
Yeah.
not all there. I guess saying earn this
Yeah.
comes across as earnest. So
Yeah.
I was
Tom
confused, but-
Sizemore, getting the wind knocked out of him.
Yeah.
I wanted to cry when that happened, honestly,
Mhm.
because he was all, I just got the wind knocked out of me, and then all of a sudden you see him staring at the ignition, thing,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh,
And I realized,
gotta
I'm
blow
like,
that
oh,
bridge.
whoops, he's gone.
Yeah.
All right, well, got to blow that bridge. Time to start firing my 1911 at a tank, and all of a sudden it blows up out of nowhere. Like, hey, I'm amazing. Oh, thanks.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool ending, pretty cool
Mhm.
all around movie.
Yeah, but again, so much practical effects that went into that it just made it more real. They
Style
did
of
not just
shooting
rely
it.
on CGI, the style how they're shooting it, the pace they set it at,
Yeah.
just all things just culminate to make that a
American.
fantastic American movie.
Yeah, America.
So-
So we have some honorable mentions that we
Mhm.
can't mention, but we're gonna mention them. There's only 4 of them. We just saw American Sniper recently. He saw it
Mhm.
before I ever did. I just knew about Chris Kyle before he passed away.
Fantastic
And I was
man,
really
fantastic
upset
human
about
being,
what
a
happened.
patriot.
So maybe I didn't want to watch the movie,
Yeah.
but I eventually watched
Such
it.
a sad story.
And it's
yeah.
accurate, and I like it. And then Rough Riders is a TNT movie. It's pretty
Oh, my
long,
goodness.
with Tom Berenger playing Teddy Roosevelt.
I did not know about this movie till you introduced me to it. And
Such
I'm
a
so
fun
glad you did
American
because it's
movie.
great. Mhm.
Yeah, and there's so many. It's like a bunch of cowboys meets a bunch of guys
Such an
from New
understated
York.
story in old
Yeah.
Teddy Roosevelt's life that I think
They're all
we should
non-
get more.
They're all volunteers,
Mhm.
for the Spanish American. I thought that was really great, and then he actually showed that he could be a good leader in that, and became president later. Tom Berenger did a fine job. And
Tom
then-
Berenger, just completely different role for him.
Yeah.
He's not usually
But not.
eccentric and zany and out there and very charismatic.
Yeah.
He's usually much more gruff and held back. And he's been in war movies before, but to see him play Teddy, it's like, holy cow, dude! Again, pulling out all the stops to suddenly act.
and it's only available on YouTube.
Yeah.
And Gettysburg
Unfortunately.
is our next one. Gettysburg with Jeff Daniels' mustache, and I think Tom Berenger was in that one too. Pretty sure we had a fake beard, but he was pretty cool.
Honestly, out of all of them, that's one I need to go back and watch again because I think I was like 5 or
Yeah.
6 when I saw it. Maybe
And it's got, like,
still
Sam
some pretty
Elliott in
definite
it
memories,
again.
but yeah.
But at the end of the movie, it felt like for me, it just kind of felt like it just kind of ended abruptly. But it's because they held him off from charging up the hill, and that was the main, okay, we're not going to win this battle. So, and that was a big turn point in the Civil War. And then Lincoln with Steven Spielberg and Daniel Day-Lewis.
Oh, just
I mean,
fantastic
knocking it
acting,
out of the ballpark.
historically accurate.
Not a really a war movie, but there's war scenes ish in it, and but yeah, it's about the 13th Amendment. It's about abolishing slavery, and I thought that he did a fine job playing Lincoln, and people just kind of crapped on him for having a squeaky voice, but guess what? That's his voice.
Yep.
He's trying to be
Alright.
pretty accurate, guys. The only thing that wasn't accurate is about 2 inches too short. Whatever.
That's about it. Otherwise, Day-Lewis knocked it out of the park again. Yet another Oscar-worthy performance. Great movie for this political climate we find ourselves in, because we have to remind ourselves what the Republican Party did for us, what Lincoln did for us, why this is still such a great company or country.
Company.
Well, in a
What
lot of
company are we
ways,
in?
yeah, in a lot of ways, with our,
I'm in this
with some
company.
people's view of capitalism, it has kind of turned into a company. We
Yeah,
do have
sadly.
a CEO kind of running the country right now.
Oh,
So
snap.
it's definitely interesting times we find ourselves in, but yet you can still say that we're the greatest country in the world because of so many obvious reasons. We can just go down the line of all sorts of history, but that's not this video. That's not what we're going for right now.
Yeah.
We just wanted to have some American moments, some apple pie, some ice cream. We got our coffee, hot dogs. It is the 4th of July. It is our Independence Day. We have baseball coming back. Thank goodness.
60
It's going to
games.
be a weird season. It's going to be a weird year, as it already has been. But in a lot of ways, because of our tenacity, because of the American spirit, because of our diversity, because of our freedoms and our liberties, because of this being the greatest country in the world to be in, for all the privilege that we have for being in this country, no matter what color you are, it's just great to see that we're still hitting things on the wall, but still knocking it out of the park. All that to say, America, F yeah.
Yeah. Congratulations, we made it through another video.
Yep. And
Hey,
we're glad
you
you
might
came
have
along
too.
for the experience. So
I'm
if you
not
made
sure.
it this far, as usual, we got a list of things we'd like you to do for liking, sharing, and subscribing. We appreciate that effort. We appreciate you watching and enjoying this.
And happy
It's,
4th of July, yo.
Happy 4th of July. Happy Independence Day. God bless America. And God bless the Republic.
Button push.